Today we are going to be talking about transformations in the coordinate plane. So, our coordinate plane, as you know, consists of our x and y axes, and it is a flat surface, and we give points coordinates. So, the last lesson we touched briefly on actually graphing the shapes. So, I graphed a shape here. It's a triangle, and I am going to label it A, B, C. I'm going to give those vertices those point names. I'm also going to give them their coordinates. So A, I'm at 0, -3. B is 5, -3. And C is 1, -5. And I am going to transform this. In other words, I am going to move it somewhere else in the coordinate plane. So I am going to say I want to move it up 5 units. Move it up 5 units. So what I did is I cut out a shape that looks exactly the same. And I am now going to move it up the coordinate plane 5 units. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So I am right there right now. Now I am going to put my points here, and then I am going to move it away, and I am now going to connect my points. So there is now my new translated figure, my translated triangle. I moved it up. I didn't flip it around, spin it, or do anything like that. I just simply moved it in one direction, and that is a translation. We learned that in geometry. Now we also are going to label our points. Whenever we translate a figure, the corresponding points get very similar point names. And this is A, and it moved directly up here. We call it A prime. We put that little kind of comma or apostrophe right there. B is going to be B prime, and C is going to be C prime. Now let's just look at what our coordinates for these points are. This is at 0, 2. B prime is at 5, 2. And C prime is at 1, 0. Now let's look at how they relate to their previous points. 0, -3 became 0, 2. B was 5, -3. B prime is 5, 2. C was 1, -5. It now is 1, 0. I went up 5 units for each one, and so the x values stayed the same, and the y values increased. All right, I will do another example. I have another triangle. This time I want to reflect it over the y-axis. Reflect. So when we reflect something, we have it here, and then we are going to flip it over that line of reflection. That is a reflection. And so the y-axis is right there. That's our vertical axis. So we are going to take this shape and flip it over to this side. And so just to kind of, oops, I got the wrong triangle here. Here is the triangle. I am going to flip it over. Now I have to be sure, I remember when we had geometry last unit, we had to keep this space the same on the other line. So this side of my triangle is now going to be over here. And I am going to flip that over here. See how that just flipped over? So what I'm going to do first with my original triangle, I am going to label it X, Y, and Z. And then I am going to give them their coordinates. So X is at -4, 2. negative 4, 2. My y is at negative 1, 6. And my z coordinate is at negative 1, 2. So now that I am reflected over that line, I'm going to give myself my vertices. And then I am going to connect my points. Right. So now I have to label these. And each point has to correspond to its original point. So this point right here is going to be z prime. This point is going to be y prime. And this point over here is going to be x prime. Now let's do our coordinates of each of these. Z prime is at 1, 2. Y prime is at 1, 6. And x prime is at 4, 2. So let's look at how they are the same, or how they compare, y to y prime. This is at negative 1, 6. This is at 1, 6. So you see how they're at the same height, but I am just the opposite. Negative 1 becomes a positive 1. Look at this one here, x to x prime. This is negative 4, 2. This is 4, 2. The y value stays the same, but my x value is the opposite. Same thing here. Now, I could reflect it maybe over the x-axis. What if I wanted to do that? Okay. I am going to flip it right over. So how I just flip it like this, I have to keep it the same distance. There's 2 units here, 2 units there. So I would have this shape if I flipped it over the x-axis. I'll just quickly do that. So in this case, this would be my x prime. This one would be my y prime. And this one would be my z prime. Okay? And if I were to find their coordinates, this is at negative 4, negative 2. This one is at negative 1, negative 2. This one is at negative 1, negative 6. So when I compare them, this case, the x value stayed the same. This was at negative 4, 2. This is at negative 4, negative 2. My z and z prime, this is negative 1, 2. This is negative 1, negative 2. And the same thing for the y. So those are reflections. One last way to do a transformation, and that is doing a rotation. This is a little bit more difficult to see. So say I have this rectangle. I will label it J, K, L, and M. So let's just, for right now, let's put our points in there. J is at negative 4, 3. K is at 0, 3. L is at 0, 0, the origin. And M is at negative 4, 0. Now, say I wanted to do a rotation 180 degrees clockwise. So clockwise means I'm spinning this way around the origin. So a way to figure that, better see that, is if I had a cutout of it. So there's my rectangle. I am going to put my pencil there to hold that corner down at 0, 0. I am going to spin it. That is 90 degrees. So see how I went from this axis to this axis? And then now I'm going to go another 90 degrees, and that becomes 180 degrees. So what I'll do now is put my points in there. I am going to connect. It's kind of hard to see because the axes are so dark and it kind of blends into my pencil. Okay, so we can now see that here is my rectangle, just like that. Now I have to label the points. So when I spun this around, I'm going to hold my finger here. Now here's letter J. I'm going to see where letter J turns out. So right there is letter J. It has that little mark on it. I'm going to go here. So here is where my J prime is going to be. Now let's see where my K is going to be. Here's K. Here's K. And now I'm going to spin it around. So here is my K prime. My L prime is going to be the same. That leaves us M prime. And now I'm going to fill in my coordinates. Still at the origin, 0, 0. M prime is at 4, 0. J prime is at 4, negative 3. And K prime is at 0, negative 3. So you can see how they relate to each other. Here's my K and K prime. It's at 0, 3, 0, negative 3. J prime is, J was at negative 4, 3. Now J prime is at 4, negative 3. So it seems like the opposite, the signs, the positive, negative signs, just flip-flop in each of this. So this is a 180-degree rotation clockwise about the origin. And that is how we do transformations on the coordinate plane.